Lanval. Around line 325. We left off before spring break with Guinevere going to King Arthur and telling him that Lanval had insulted her and tried to rape her. And so we are told, line 325, the king got extremely angry. He swore his oath on this. If Lanval cannot defend himself in court, he will have him burnt or hanged. So the king goes out, calls for 3 of his nobles. He sends them for Lanval, who had gone back to his lodging notice. And it was quite evident to him that he had lost his beloved. He had revealed their love. He's all alone in the chamber. He calls out for her. She doesn't appear. Okay. Curses his heart in his mouth. He cannot cry out a wail or reproach or torment himself. Lines 346 and following. Alas, 351, what will he do? So the emissaries of the king arrive. They take him to the court. He comes before the king, and the king says, 363, Vassal, you have done me a great wrong. You began to base the suit to shame and revile me and insult the queen. You boasted foolishly. Your beloved is far too exalted when her maid is more beautiful and worthy than the queen. Notice the king doesn't say you lied. The king just says you boasted too highly by saying that her maid is more beautiful than the queen. Right? Lanval denies the dishonor. Notice he doesn't deny saying what he said. What he denies is the idea that he attempted to make love to the queen, in that he had not requested the queen's love, but he acknowledged the truth of what he had said concerning the love about which he boasted. He's distressed for he has lost her. Concerning this, he says he will do whatever the court decides. Notice, he doesn't take, oh, I'm a victim approach. He's like, okay, I'll take my licks. I've got to pay whatever the cost is. So the king's upset. So he sends for all his men to say rightly what he must do about this. Why? Why doesn't the king just decide? This is Camelot. It's not a tyranny. Okay? But the whole purpose of the round table is that each of the knights in the round table have a say. Okay? This is kind of what the trial by jury of one's peers develops out of. Because this is before Magna Carta. Okay? So, they did what he ordered, whether they liked it or not. They go off together. The judge decided Lanval should have his day in court. Notice, he gets a trial by a jury of his peers. The jury of his peers are going to be the members of the round table. He has to come at a set day and present his case. He must provide, line 390 we're told, guarantees for his lord that he will await his judgment and return to his presence. In other words, he's out on bail. Okay? The bail here, however, is not a monetary amount. It is somebody else has to say, I will be surety for him, so that if Lanval doesn't show up, that person will take his place, okay, in the trial. Notice, we're told, Lanval, for 398, was alone and in great distress. He had no relative or friend. Gawain goes there, or Gawain, depending on how you want to pronounce his name, who stands surety for Lanval, and all his companions go after him. Sir Gawain, or Gawain, stands and says, I will be his proof. If he flees, let the judgment fall on me. So the king says, okay, I commend him to you on the basis of whatever you may hold of me, lands, feasts, etc., etc. So Lanval goes off to his lodging. The knights go along with him. They rebuke him. They counsel him not to be in such sorrow. They curse such mad love. In other words, hormones, kind of a thing. Every day they go to see him. They want to know how he's doing, whether he's drinking, whether he's eating, is he just wasting away? Because they're greatly afraid he would go mad. So, the appointed day comes, the nobles assemble, the king and queen are there, and if you ever have the opportunity to go to England, go to Winchester. Go to the Great Hall at Winchester, which is a medieval hall, late medieval hall, and look at the round table. Because quote unquote, Arthur's round table is at the medieval hall. This table is like 50 feet in diameter. It's huge, and it's hanging up on the wall. So that tells you how high the wall is. Okay? And you have all the knights of the round table portrayed visually in paintings. Okay, the paintings of the Knights of the Round Table are late 15th century, 1400s, okay? Except for one of them, Arthur. Arthur's been touched up a bit. Because Arthur's face was repainted to match somebody else. Sometime in the very late 15th century or early 16th century. Because the image of Arthur is King Henry VIII. Okay? I mean, who better to idealize yourself as? It's young Henry VIII. It's not old, grotesquely fat Henry VIII. Who was so fat he couldn't walk by the time he died. So, they're all brought to the court. There's the king and queen. The guarantors bring Lanval. Everybody is sad for him. Why? Well, Guinevere's a looker. She's gorgeous. And they're thinking, there's no way he gets out of this. I believe there were some 100 there who would have done anything in their power to free him without a trial. He was very wrongly accused. He was wrongly accused. Why? Yeah, but who else knows that? Well, in Arthurian tradition, or in much Arthurian literature, Guinevere is not, shall we say, pure as the wind-driven snow. She's pure as the wind-driven snow after it's been driven over a few hundred times by a bunch of cars. In other words, she's pretty dirty, okay? She's been around the block a few times, or a few dozen times, not only with her husband. So, the king asked for the record of the claim, that is, what are the charges? What are the rebuttals? What's his rebuttal? I didn't do what she says I did. I did say what she says I said. So, I didn't want to have her as my lover, but I did say these things about her and my real lover. So the nobles all sit in judgment. They're anxious, they're dismayed. 431. Some want to find him guilty according to their lord's wishes. In other words, to placate Arthur. Because happy wife, happy life. Unhappy wife, unhappy king. The Count of Cornwall said, we must not fall short. 435. For whoever may weep or sing, the law must take precedence. King has spoken against his vassal, whom I hear you call Lanval. He's charged him with a crime, accused him of wrongdoing. No one accuses him but the king. By the faith I owe you, if one wants to speak the truth about this, there would not even be a case. Except for this, a man should do honor to his lord in all matters. My lady became angry concerning a love of which he boasted. Notice, she didn't get angry because he wanted to love her, this Knight of Cornwall is saying. The implication is, they know about Guinevere. After all, why is she sitting up there in her tower with her ladies, looking down where the men are playing, jousting and such? So, 451, if he can have his guarantor, if his lady should come, that's his real guarantor. It's not Sir Gawain. Sir Gawain can't dress up and drag and go, hey guys, wouldn't work. The real lady has got to come forth. and what he said about her, which made the queen angry, was true, then he'll receive mercy. So he's kind of saying, here's what I think we ought to do, folks. If she will come, stand here, get on the pedestal and go in circles, so do this, so everybody can check her out, and we'll go, okay, Gwenny, you come on, check the two. Okay, yeah. Then he gets off, scot-free. If he can't produce proof, however, 457, we must make him understand this. He loses all his service to the king and must take his leave of him. Banished, in other words. They tell Lanval that he should have his beloved come to defend and bear witness. He says, can't do it. He would never get help from her. They go back to the judges, who expect no help from that quarter, and the king urges them fiercely for the sake of the queen who is waiting. And just as they're about to give their verdict, what do you think that verdict's going to be? Is it going to be, okay, he gets banished? Or might it be a little more severe than that? What do you think Guinevere wants? His head on a platter. Or like a house elf, stuck on her wall. They see two maidens coming on two beautiful brisk palfreys. Now, it's been suggested by some scholars that this element of this poem might have a basis in history. You've all tried her chocolate, probably.
Oh,
Lady Godiva. Okay. Whether she was a lady or not, the myth is based on a story that some say actually occurred in Anglo-Saxon times. Okay? That a lady strode through town, or on a horse, there's kind of different versions, stark naked. And she did that, and I don't remember so I'm going to get it completely wrong, all the exact parallels. But she did it to prove a point, some point about what somebody had said about her. Okay? And all the people of the town, because they loved her so much, hid inside. Hid inside, didn't look out the windows, and she went through the town. Okay? So here come these beautiful maidens on horseback. Extremely lovely, we're told, 475, dressed in nothing but purple taffeta, down to their bare skin. Okay? So, what does the color of their clothing tell us? Royalty. Or they serve royalty. Okay? Everyone gazes at them eagerly. Gawain, 3 nights with him, goes to Lanval. He showed him the two maidens. And I kind of imagine Lanval's in his home, his lodgings, and he's just kind of slumped down in a corner because he's thinking, when they come for me, they're going to lop my head off. And they go, Lanval, take a look. And he kind of peeks up, looks out the window. Nope, not her. And you're like, damn. Why? He was very happy and begged him to say whether this was his beloved. 483. Lanval tells him he does not know who they are, nor where they come from, nor where they are going. The maidens went along on their horses. In this fashion, they got down in front of the dais where King Arthur was sitting. They ride the horses into Camelot, into the hall, right up to the high table. They get off their horses. We're told, 489, they were very beautiful and spoke courteously. That is, they speak after the manner of court. Now you're going to see when we do start Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which we might start today, the Green Knight does not speak courteously. Right? He challenges the knights. King, have your chambers made ready and hung with silks where my lady can dismount. Hung with silks, that is, cover up all these ugly old nasty castle walls. We want everything to be pretty for her. She wants to take lodging with you. He very willingly granted this to them. Why? Because he's courteous and a knight? Yes. But they're also very fine-looking women. He called 2 knights. They led them up to the chambers. At that time, they said no more. So the king's like, come on, guys. Judgment day. Says, I'm angry. You've delayed so long. They say, sorry, Lord. They interrupted us. We broke off our discussion on account of the ladies we saw. We have not made a decision. Now they'll resume the trial. So they start talking again. And while they're in this disarray, in come 2 more ladies down the road. 2 maidens of noble bearing, dressed in cool silk. They ride 2 Spanish mules. The vassals were delighted. They say to Lanval, now you're saved. What does that mean? The vassals are knights. They're not necessarily peons or peasants. Okay? So when the vassals say, Lanval, you're saved, what at least are those 2 vassals saying? Okay, what else though?
They're prettier than the queen.
They're prettier than Guinevere. That's what they're saying. If they say, Lanval, you're saved, then Lanval, you're right. Right? Yvain goes to him. Says, rejoice for the love of God. Either of them her? They're very elegant and beautiful. Surely it is your beloved. He responds hastily, nope. Just then the maids arrived. They also dismount before the king. Many people gave great praise to their, notice, bodies, faces, and coloring. Notice what the poet emphasizes. They noticed the figures, then the faces, then their coloring. Both of them were certainly worth more than the queen ever was.
Oh my God.
Yeah, ouch. You're filming this, right? How do you direct Guinevere at this moment? Because she's sitting right next to Arthur. What does she do when these 2 come riding down the hall?
I'd be fuming. She's seething right now.
She's seething, yeah. I mean, she's getting these looks on her face, The elder was courteous and wise. She spoke her message becomingly. King, provide rooms for us in order to receive my lady. She's coming here to speak to you. So he gives orders. They get taken up to the other rooms. They did not need to worry about the mules. When he had sent them off, he ordered all his nobles. Judgment be given. Too much of the day had been taken up. The queen was getting angry that she was kept waiting so long by them. Why is the queen really getting angry? Okay, 4 drop-dead gorgeous women, any one of which is prettier than her, has just come into the room.
Well, also because these women aren't the one that...
Exactly. She can read the proverbial writing on the wall, This is not going to be good. When, through the town, they saw a maiden come riding on a horse. In all the world, there was none more beautiful. None what? Horse more beautiful or the maiden more beautiful? Pronouns. She rode a white palfrey, which carried her well and gently. Why white? Purity. It had a well-shaped neck and head. The palfrey, I'm sure, not her. Though we're going to hear later things about having well-shaped necks and stuff. There was no handsomer animal under heaven. The palfrey was richly harnessed. No counter king under heaven could have afforded the whole thing without selling or mortgaging land. So just the horse's accoutrements, saddle, harness, bridle, etc. She was dressed in this manner. Shift of white linen, shift, negligee, see-through, okay? Which let both her sides be seen, so it's like open down here, as it was laced on either side. She had a lovely body. There's a long waist. I'm not quite sure what the long waist implies. A neck whiter than snow on a branch, giving us an idea of the ideal of beauty. Sparkling eyes and white skin. Beautiful mouth, well-formed nose, dark eyebrows, lovely forehead, curling golden hair. No golden thread cast such a gleam as did her hair in the sun. Her mantle was dark purple, so over the shift, she has a dark purple mantle. a thing that goes over the shoulders. Sorry, something in my eye. She had wrapped its ends around her. She had a sparrowhawk on her fist, and a greyhound ran behind her. Okay, notice, sparrowhawk and a greyhound, both typically courtly animals, markers of high status. Not anybody could be a falconer in the Middle Ages. Reserved for royalty, really. Or at the very least, aristocracy. Okay? So she comes in, sparrowhawk on her fist, greyhound behind her, wearing purple and white, all the symbols of majesty. No one in the town, great or small, not the old men nor the children, who did not go to look at her. Everybody comes out and lines the road. As they saw her pass, there was no joking about her beauty. In other words, no ribald or racy jokes. It was like they realized they're in the presence of real majesty here. The judges who saw her considered it a great marvel. There was not one who looked at her who did not grow warm with true joy. Yeah, I'll bet it was true joy. Those who loved the knight came to him, told him of the maiden who was coming, who, if it pleased God, would set him free. Here comes one who is not tawny nor dark. Tawny, tan, okay? Golden colored, kind of like lionish, nor dark. She's the loveliest in the world of all the women who live. Lanval lifts his head up, looks out that window. He knew her well. He's thinking free at last, you know. The blood rose to his face, probably other parts as well. Very quick to speak. In faith, he said, "It is my beloved. Now I care little who may kill me. If she does not take pity on me, why? I get to see her again. Kill me now, and he'll die happy." She enters the palace. Such a beauty had never come there. Guinevere, you're out of luck here. She dismounts before the king so that she could easily be seen by all. She lets her mantle fall so that they could see her better. So the mantle wrapped around her neck, probably draped over, she lets it fall so they could see her better.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay. The king, who was very well bred, got up to meet her. A lady comes in. He stands up. Notice, he didn't stand up when the other four came in. Is it merely because he recognizes his equal? And all the others honored her and offered themselves to serve her. Yeah, I bet they did. When they had looked at her well and greatly praised her beauty, she spoke in this way, for she did not wish to delay. In other words, she's got a timetable to keep. You know, the train is getting ready. King, I have fallen in love with one of your vassals. You see him here, it's Lanval. In other words, Lanval followed. He came in behind. He was accused in your court. I do not wish to be held against him concerning what he said. You should know that the queen was wrong. He never asked for her love. Ah! Notice what she addresses first. The slander against him. Okay? Oh, and the boast he made? Well, if he can be acquitted by me, have your nobles set him free. And I kind of imagine if I were filming, she goes, good enough? Everybody? And the women are even going, yeah, it's good enough. Damn, why her? The king grants that whatever they judge by law, it shall be so. Notice the king doesn't say, it's the men. There is not one who does not judge that Lanval has completely won the case. Which immediately puts the men on what side of Guinevere? Yeah. You're like, just wait till she leaves. He is freed by their decision, and the maiden takes her leave. Notice, the king could not keep her. Like, you sure you don't want to, it's Motel 6. Set a spell, stay a while. No. She had enough people to serve her. Ouch. The narrator is saying she doesn't need a king as her servant. She had enough servants. Outside the hall was set a great block of dark marble, where heavy men mounted, who were coming from the king's court. Lanval climbed up on it when the maiden came through the gate. With one leap, Lanval jumped on the palfrey behind her. And off to Avalon, so the Bretons tell us, to a very beautiful island. The young man was carried off there. No one ever heard another word of him, and I can tell no more. The end. Okay? Now that's Marie de France's version of the Lanval tale. There's another one called Sir Lanval. There are several Lanval tales. In Sir Lanval, which is written in Middle English, it's a little bit different. The king comes into possession of a magic horn, a drinking horn, ram's horn that you drink out of. But this horn has been charmed so that whoever drinks out of that horn at the round table, make sure I put my lid on tight, whoever drinks out of that horn, if his beloved, whether wife or girlfriend, is false to him, he cannot drink of the horn without it spilling. So, if your beloved is true to you, you can drink and no drops, no spillage. Okay? So it's kind of a challenge. You're going to find out whether or not your lover is true to you or not. And so they start passing it around. Arthur doesn't go first.
Oh, God.
Arthur goes last. Because when it comes to Arthur, I mean, some of the nights they drink and, there's a little drop, and every now and then you get one. No leaking, no spilling. Usually that's the celibate guys, But it comes to Arthur, and it's like the cap is off. He can't even get the horn close to his mouth, and it's just... Okay? Telling us a little bit about Guinevere's behavior. Lancelot is not the first, in other words. Okay? So what is this poem showing us? Are we seeing the courtly love tradition? We see elements of it. Part of that courtly love tradition, one of those rules of courtly love, is the courtly lover must keep his love secret. And the lady must keep it secret too. Okay? Well, Lanval goes and, spills the beans.
But he wasn't supposed to.
And he wasn't supposed to. But he does. She still comes and rescues him. That violates the courtly love tradition. That shows, not really quite courtly love. Chivalric, yes. But she's the one really there embodying the ideals of chivalry. Notice, it's not a damsel in distress. It's a knight in distress. And she comes and rescues him. Okay? You have other elements of the courtly love tradition. Okay? Magic, supernatural element, that is often there. Emphasis on love, it's clearly there. Okay? But look at the character of Lanval. Notice, once he falls in love with her, what does he start to do? He gives away everything that he has. Why? Because he keeps getting more and more. There's probably a biblical element to that. Okay? Christ feeding the 5,000 kind of a thing. Where the more you give, the more you have a mentality. We're going to see some of that in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and some of that in The Wife of Bath's Tale. Why? Because all three of these, are dealing with the idea of gentilezza, or true nobility. What makes a person noble? What were we told about Lanval at the very beginning? He's the son of a king. Is that what makes him noble? Or is it the fact that he's poor at the beginning? Why? He shared everything he has. And yet Arthur, at the beginning of the poem, has not given Lanval anything. Arthur is a king. Arthur gives to the other knights, but he doesn't give anything to Lanval. Why not? Well, so the poem could happen. That's a plot device. It's like Satan meeting in God in heaven at the beginning of the book of Job. The rest of the book of Job wouldn't make any sense if you don't have the sons of God meeting with God in heaven. Okay? So, getting at this idea of gentilessa, what is real honor? Or, if you don't want nobility, what is real honor? Where is it found? How is it shown? Is it, as Falstaff says in Henry IV, Part 1, a mere nothing, a mere escutcheon, like a slogan, a logo? Or does it have something to do with behavior? Or is it as Hotspur in the Shakespeare play, and as some of the knights here think, is it merely derivative of blood, genealogy? For example, how many of you have seen A Knight's Tale? Probably most of you, okay? William Thatcher in A Knight's Tale is born into what status of society? Peasant. Thatcher. His father is a Thatcher. The name means the occupation. Thatches roofs. Okay? What does he want, however? He wants to be a knight. I can't remember the name of the knight that he takes on. Ulrich von Liechtenstein. Okay? Real person, by the way, who actually wrote a book about knighthood. Okay? He takes on this name because the real Ulrich von Liechtenstein dies. And what does he want? He wants to change his stars. Well, in the early medieval ages, even in the late medieval ages, that was pretty hard to do. The only way you could change your stars, to change your station in life, is essentially to move. Okay? If you're a peasant, it's to move from the countryside to the town, to the city. And do what? Learn a trade. What kind of trade? Well, how are you going to learn a trade if you don't know anything? Well, fortunately for people in the mid-14th century, 1348 to about 1350, a thing swept through Europe that kind of created lots of great job opportunities. The plague. Okay? Roughly, according to our best estimates, 1/3 of the population of Europe died. 1/3. It's estimated, I think it's something like 20 million. So imagine that happening in the United States today. And I'll pick the states to get rid of. Since I'm from there. California, just wipe it off the map. 50 million people. Okay? That's not 1/3 of our population. That's 1/6 of our population, a little bit less than that. So California, New York's only another 10 or 12 million more. Illinois, about that same, not quite more than that. But if you take like California and Texas and Florida, then you're close to 1/3 of the population of the United States. Roughly 100 million. We're 330 million. Okay? Or imagine 1/3 of your friends dead, 1/3 of this class. Not quite, but just about all of you guys gone. Okay? Well, what does that do? Because where does the plague hit the worst? Cities. Where do all epidemics hit the worst? Cities. Why? Because people are close together and it's spread through human contact. Okay? So you get the taverns are empty, the wheelwright shops are empty, the blacksmith shops are empty, so people come in. And that's where you begin to see the rise of the middle class. Okay? Does it give you honor? Are you granted honor or nobility because you quote unquote change your stars? Nope.
No.
Nope. You know, we do not have an aristocracy per se in the United States. Why? We don't have blue bloods, so to speak, per se in the United States. Why do I say per se?
Because there was old money.
Because there's old money, and we do have blue bloods of a sort, right?
Yeah.
Name a family that belongs to that clan.
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt. Kennedys.
But that's
I mean,
probably
after
legal
all,
money, though.
the Kennedys, Jackie and Jack, were what? Camelot.
Yeah, but that's from bootleg money, so I don't feel like.
Well,
like
no,
that's
not really. I mean,
you know?
the myth of Camelot came because of the press, you know, idolizing them and all that kind of stuff. But the Kennedy clan goes back a long way. The Bush clan goes back a long way. Will the Trump clan ever be part of that? And I could say not just the Trump. I'm only using Trump because he's president.
I mean,
Okay.
he inherited his wealth, so maybe.
Well, he inherited $1 million, but then he built the rest. He
Million,
lost a
lot
bunch,
of
you know.
money.
Okay. But will Bill Gates ever be that? No. No. Why? The family name doesn't go back. Trump even more than Gates. Why? Because Trump's a guy from Queens. He's a brawler. That's it. The Bushes? Upstate. New England. Old. Money. Old name. Kennedys. Same thing. So we still have this kind of inherited idea of nobility. Even though Bill Gates is one of the richest people in the world. Jeff Bezos, nobody. He is a nobody in this kind of mentality. Why? The name doesn't have the lineage that goes along with it. Okay? Now, we're going to start, wherever it is, we're going to start Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Because Sir Gawain and the Green Knight also deals with this idea of honor and nobility. Okay? What is honor? What is noble behavior? It's on, the actual poem starts on 226 in your book. Okay? Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is written in the mid 14th century. We don't know the exact date. I think your text suggests poems written in regional dialect characteristic of Northwest England at the time of its popular composition during the last quarter of the 14th century. Last quarter of the 14th century means 1375 to 1400. It's wrong. It's not that late. Okay? It dates somewhere 1350 to 1375. It's part of the alliterative tradition. Okay? It's written in the northwest area of England. J.R.R. Tolkien suggested that it was written within about a 30-mile radius of the city of Chester. So take a string, go 30 miles from the city center of Chester, draw a circle, and it's somewhere within that 60-mile diameter. Okay? With Chester at its locus, at its center. Literative tradition, that's why we get the alliteration that we see in it. Why do I say 1350 to 75? Because there's internal evidence that suggests that, such as the description of the armor. Armor can be dated because of its shape, because of how it's described, etc. If you saw A Knight's Tale, there is a scene where William is getting ready to do a joust against the guy who's the bad guy all throughout. I can't remember his name. And he says, "Look at your armor. How quaint." He means how out of date. He's got this big old shield right here. Okay? Built into the suit of armor. Well, that's old. The new suit of armor doesn't have that big shield. Okay? So you get those kinds of details in this that indicate it's sometime between this. Period. So, notice how it begins. When the siege and the assault were ended at Troy, the city laid waste and burnt into ashes. The man who had plotted the treacherous scheme was tried for the wickedest trickery ever. Why are we beginning in Troy?
Because he's trying to argue that the British are ascended from Aeneas.
Yes. It's part of the British myth. The very name, Briton, comes from Brutus, an offspring of Aeneas. That was part of the national myth. You have another work written in a very similar dialect called The Brute. Not Brute, but it's about Brutus and the founding of Britain. Okay? So, we're going to skip the beginning. So we find out Brutus, founds England and everything, or Britain and everything. And skip on down to line 37. The king spent that Christmas at Camelot. So we're automatically, because we know he's spending Christmas, we're in a Christian period. Okay? With many gracious lords, men of great worth, noble brothers in arms, worthy of the round table, etc., etc. Knights fighting in tournament again and again. Okay, the knights fighting in tournament tells us it's not just Christian like early Anglo-Saxon England Christian, but you have tournaments. That means it's late medieval. Really post 1200 or so. Tournaments don't get really popular until post 1300. Tournaments being like our modern day major sporting events. I mean, they get that part actually kind of right in the Knight's Tale, where you have these jousting grounds and people pay tickets and they come in and... Okay? So, they're all there, line 51, most famous warriors in Christendom, loveliest ladies who ever drew breath, finest king who rules the court, blah, 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 blah. Line 60, New Year's comes, so they're still celebrating. They're participating in the 12th night revels, essentially, that go from Christmas until Epiphany, January 6th. Okay? And they're jousting and having fun and everything. And we're told, line 85. I'm skipping a little bit about who's sitting next to whom. Arthur would not eat until everyone was served. He was so lively in his youth and a little boyish. He hankered after an active life, cared very little to spend time either lying or sitting. His young blood and restless mind stirred him so much, and another habit influenced him too, which he had made a point of honor. He would never eat on such a special day until he'd been told a curious tale about some perilous thing, or some great wonder that he could believe, a prince's battles of other marvels, or some knight begged him for a trustworthy foe to oppose him in jousting, etc., etc. So, Arthur wouldn't eat until everybody was served. What's that telling us? What's that not telling us? What's that giving as a model?
Putting yourself last.
Generosity.
Humility.
Humility. Putting yourself last.
But
Close.
at the same time, like, people are eating the foods we know it's poisoning or not,
No, that's not that.
Because, I mean, if they drop dead.
It's courtesy. It's courtesy. These are manners. These are the manners of court. This is why, if you practiced proper manners, okay, today, you have a bunch of people over to your home for dinner and you prepare an actual meal. It's not just, chips and beer kind of a thing. Proper manners would indicate that nobody else eats anything until what?
Everybody's served.
Until the host or hostess takes the first bite. Okay? Here, it's kind of the last. Okay? But everybody, the host or hostess, doesn't take in proper manners today, Letitia Baldrige kind of a thing. my wife, when she was working on an MBA, she actually had to buy Letitia Baldridge's manners book because one of her professors said, you're off on a business meal, you're off on a business dinner with a client, you better know how to do all of this. So they were tested over all the manners in this 800-page, book. Okay? So you don't eat, the host or hostess doesn't take the first bite until everybody is served. What does that mean? Because the host and hostess are often going to be the first one served. Their food will be what? Cold. While the last person served, their food will still be warm. Okay? So, till everybody is served, what else? He wants to hear a tale that he can believe in about some perilous thing or great wonder, or about princes or battles or other marvels, or a challenge between two knights. One of those things. Okay? Such was the king's custom. So there he is, chatting. There's Sir Gawain sitting next to Guinevere. There's Gawain a la Domaine on the other side. There's Bishop Baldwin. There's Yvain, etc., etc. Line 30, the poet says, I'm not going to talk anymore about how they're served and what kind of shortage there was, etc., etc. But 136, in there burst at the door a terrible figure in his stature the very tallest on earth. From the waist to the neck, so thick set and square, and his loins and his limbs so massive and long, in truth half a giant I believe he was. But anyway, of all men I judge him the largest and the most attractive of his size, who could sit on a horse. For while in back and chest his body was forbidding, both his belly and waist were becomingly trim. This is Mr. Incredible. He's like this, boom, down to here. 22-inch waist, 62-inch chest. Big, massive guy. What else? All green. He's not just dressed in green. His hair is green. His skin is green. His eyes are green. He's Shrek. But he doesn't look like Shrek. Okay? All arrayed in green, this man in his clothes, close-fitting coat, blah, blah, blah. And we get the description down to the last detail of his clothing, of his horse's harness and everything. Why? Do we, 21st century audience, give a rat's you-know-what about the detail about the clothing? No. But the poet's audience did. That's telling us something about the poet's audience. Is the poet's audience the poor Slavs living in a hovel on a Deribert floor? No. Who are they? People like this. People who pay attention to all these little details. Okay? Who, as an example, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't ask this because maybe some of you go, oh, I do. Who really cares for what so-called stars wear to the Oscars? People in fashion, or people at the Oscars, people in LA, people in New York, people in the industry do. Us, not so much. Why? Because I don't think anybody in here can afford a scores of thousands dollar gown or suit or jewelry. Okay? So, he comes in, horse is all green, everything on the horse is green. Notice that description goes from roughly 145 to when he finally speaks. Everything up until about 224. It's 80 lines of description of his clothing and appearance and the horse's appearance. Okay? And what does he do? He rides up on that horse. Imagine this is the high table. So you have Arthur, Guinevere, Lancelot, Gawain, and Yvain, and Bishop Baldwin, etc. He rides right up on his horse to that table, and he gets dead center in front of Arthur. And notice what he says. Where is 224, the governor of this crowd? Glad should I be to clap eyes on the man and exchange with him a few words. He's looking Arthur right in the eye and says, where's the king? And he looks down this way, and he looks down this way. What's he doing? He's belittling him. He's taunting him. Why? Because in Middle English literature, you always know who the king is. There is a mark about the king. King Lear has it really, really well. Kent, when he's disguised, kisses Lear's hand when Lear is a beggar and has been kicked out of house and home. He kisses his hand, he says, it has the air of majesty about it. Okay? And in some Middle English literature, there is literally a mark on the king, or a sign from the king's body that this is the king. You have this one poem. Which one is it? It's either King Horn or Havelock the Dane, neither of which I've read for 30 years. Where one of them is asleep, and he's not the acknowledged king yet. He's kind of a king in exile, exiled as a young child coming back to his kingdom. And he's sleeping, and somebody comes in and notices a light coming out of his mouth. That's kind of like, king. So, who's the king? Now Arthur should go, what the hell, man? Duh. He looks down at the knights. He rides up and down. He eyes each one of them, trying to see which of them has the greatest renown. And notice, they stare. Everyone marveled what it could mean that a knight horse could take such a color. They're still trying to figure out green. And people are still trying to figure out green. What the hell does the green mean? Thousands of trees have given their lives to argue, why is he green? Is he green with envy? Is green the color of vegetation? Is this some natural fertility god? What's going on with the green? So they're all wondering that. And Arthur says, welcome to this place. I am master of this house. My name is Arthur. Dismount, spend some time, set a spell, We'll play checkers, etc. So, he says, dauntless 260 in armor and on horseback of field, the most valiant, excellent of all living men, courageous as players and other noble sports, here courtesy is displayed, as I have heard tell. This is the knight speaking. He says, I've heard this is where the greatest warriors are, most valiant, excellent of all living men. That's brought me here on this day. He's carrying a branch. What kind of branch? What was it? It's holly. That's not olive. He says, I carry this branch that I approach you in peace, seeking no battle. That is, I'm not here to fight. Okay? What does he also not have with him? No sword, no dagger. He is carrying an axe. Stinking big axe. How big is this axe? The blade is shaped like this, okay, and it goes like this. And the haft comes down like this. It's 6 feet from here to here. About the size of this table.
Oh my God.
Only Beowulf could lift this axe, in other words, for the most part, okay? Big sucker axe. So, he says, I'm not here because if I had been here to fight, I've got a shield and a spear at home and everything, but I'm not here for battle. No, I'm here for a game. 272. If you are as courageous as everyone says, you will graciously grant me the game that I asked for by right. By right means by custom, by tradition. There is a tradition that He is saying that if somebody comes and they ask to do this challenge, you got to give it to them. Okay? All right, you up for this? Or can we have this game? Notice, it's a game. What does game usually imply? Competition, fun. Both people live.
Oh, no.
No heads being lopped off. That's not a game. That's not a fun game, at least. Okay? So, Arthur says, well, if you seek courteous knight, line 276, a combat without armor, but you'll not lack a fight. That is, okay, just because you're not armed, it doesn't mean we can't fight. I mean, if you want to fight, but without armor, that's cool. Lancelot will do that. Gawain will, any one of the knights of the round table would do that. Okay? He goes, no. I seek no battle, I assure you truly. Those about me in this hall are but beardless children.
Oh my God.
I almost said something really inappropriate. I watch myself. These are mere boys. Now, Lancelot, Gawain, Bors, Bedivere, Agravain, Evain. These are not mere boys. These are guys who have been in Afghanistan and Iraq for multiple duties of tours of duty. I'll get it right one of these minutes. Right? In other words, they've seen a hell of a lot of battle. And they're going, what did he say? Beardless? There's a scene, we're going to be doing Antony and Cleopatra in my Shakespeare class. And there's a scene in there where Antony comments about Caesar, it's not Julius Caesar, it's his son, about Caesar Augustus as being beardless and calling him boy. And there's a scene where Caesar goes, he called me boy! Where he's really showing, that Antony is kind of right. It's a great scene. So, those about me in this hall are but beardless children. If I were locked in my armor on a great horse, no one here could match me with their feeble powers. This is like Arnold saying, a bunch of girly men. You guys are a bunch of pansies compared to me. He's almost saying, like Mad-Eye Moody in the Harry Potter, all of you guys armed couldn't hurt me. Therefore, I ask of the court a Christmas game. Okay, he's emphasizing, this is a game. We're playing here, all right? For it is Yule and New Year, and here are brave men in plenty. If anyone in this hall thinks himself bold enough, so gouty in body and reckless in mind, what does reckless mean? Careless. That's our modern meaning of it. But the wreck is the word in reckon. I reckon so, I reckon I will, meaning think. It's thoughtless. Okay? So, dowdy in body and thoughtless. Kind of like Helak. Duh. As to strike a blow fearlessly and take one in return. I shall give him this marvelous battle axe as a gift. This ponderous axe to use as you please. Okay, here's the game, boys. You strike a blow, and I get to strike one in return. And I'll give you this battle axe as a gift. And in fact, you can even use this battle axe to swing at me. Okay? Yeah, if they can pick it up. So they're all, popping their Red Bull. Mm-hmm. And I shall stand the first blow, unarmed as I am. If anyone is fierce enough to take up my challenge, run to me quickly, seize this weapon, I'll renounce, let him claim it as his own, and I shall stand his blow unflinching on this floor, provided you assign me the right to deal such a blow in return. And I'll even grant him a respite, 12 months and a day. That is, he can wait a year and a day before I give him his return blow. So they're all sitting there going, wait a second, there's something wrong with this picture. It's like I've been showing been showing my wife recently. I get Pinterest notifications and stuff, and I'm a woodworker, and brew beer, and so a lot of the stuff that I get is woodworking and beer brewing. And over the last 2 weeks, for some reason, I'm getting all this porn in Pinterest. It's like carving, making workbenches, making furniture, 35 great positions for. And I said, this is like a kid's game. What picture doesn't belong here? They're all sitting here wondering. You give me the axe, I take the first blow, you're going to stand, and then you get to swing the axe back at me in a year and a day? I know there's something wrong with this, but I can't quite figure it out. So, if he petrified them at first, even stiller were they, all the courtiers in that place, the great and the small. They're trying to figure it out. What's wrong with this picture? How does this not work out? Because every way they work it out in their minds, it's what? He's dead. We get the axe. What? Is this Arthur's house? Is this the round table? Come on, he says. Where are now your arrogance? And your victories, your fierceness and wrath and great speeches? Isn't this kind of like Beowulf returning first taunt? Come on, you guys are the spear Danes, the victory Schildings. Yeah, Grendel really had a lot to fear from your spears, didn't he? Your fierceness and wrath and your great speeches. Now the revelry and repute of the round table are overthrown with a word. I don't even have to do anything and you guys all cower. What's he doing? Taunting them. He's turning up the heat a little bit. He's trying to get them, fired up. He laughed so uproariously that the king took offense. The blood rushed to his fair face and cheek for shame. Arthur is red with madness. Both the insane madness and angry madness. As now all the other knights are. And so Arthur gets up out of his seat, notice, because he approaches and says, what you demand is absurd. And since you have asked for folly, that you deserve. No man known to be fears your boastful words. Hand over your battle axe in God's name. Let's go at it, buddy. Sir Gawain goes, Uncle Artie, Uncle Artie. He is his uncle. Okay? If you would, 343, noble lord, bid me rise from my seat and stand at your side. It's like he raises his hand. Can I get up, please? Why? Manners again. This is the operation, this is the behavior at court. You don't get up without the king telling you you can get up. You don't excuse yourself without, may I be excused. So he says, Your Grace, Your Lordship, may I get up and come stand by your side?
He's also sitting next to
Guinevere. Yeah. I mean, he's not sitting far from it. It's like King, Guinevere, Sir Gawain. Okay? But why does he want to come stand by his side? He hasn't used the terminology, but I think it's the shoulder to shoulder. Okay? Because he's going to offer. He says, I would give you counsel, for it seems to me unfitting, if the truth be admitted, when so arrogant a request is put forward at all, even if you are desirous to undertake it yourself, while so many brave men sit about you in their places, who I think are unrivaled. It's not right for you to take this on yourself when there are so many great knights here. Why else would it not be right? Read into the text just a little bit. What happens if Arthur dies?
And they don't have a key?
Bingo. King, you can't do that. Kings can't do entirely what they want to do. Why?
Because they have a duty to their people.
Exactly. They have a duty to their people. So, he says, and I'll shucks, Uncle Arthur. 354. I'm the weakest of them, I know, and the dullest minded. So my death would be least loss if truth should be told. Only because you are my uncle am I to be praised. No virtue I know in myself but your blood. The only reason I get to sit at the big table is because you're my uncle. That's what he means. So, is he being honest when he says I'm the weakest of them and least in blood? Or dullest minded? Or is this false humility? It's an open debate. A lot of scholars say Sir Gawain is being honest here. That, compared to Lancelot, he's not the brightest bulb in the box, you know. Lancelot's a good 150-watt bulb and maybe 40. And strength-wise, he's not the greatest. Though in most Arthurian tradition, Lancelot, and maybe like a millimeter below Sir Gawain. You even get a big battle in some of the versions. Lancelot and Gawain, and it's a tie. Okay? So, Arthur goes, way to go, kid. Step up. 372, take care, nephew, that you strike one blow, and if you deal it right, truly I believe you will wait a long time for his stroke in return. Now, I don't know if I were filming this, if I would have Arthur say this loudly to everybody. Or if he says, go ahead, and whispers in his ear. Because what's he just told him to do? Kill this green SOB. If you deal the blow rightly, you'll wait longer than a year. Gawain approaches the man with battle axe in hand. Waits for him. And he goes, okay, let's talk about our terms of agreement first. What's your name? We got to get it down on paper. What's your name? You shall tell me that truly. He says, I'm called Gawain, who deals you this blow, whatever happens after, this day next year to accept whatever another from you, with whatever weapon you choose from no other person. He goes, Sir Gawain, as I live, I'm extremely glad the blow is yours to give. By God, I am pleased that I'll get from your hands what I have asked for. So you've repeated the terms of agreement in exact terms, without omission, the whole covenant. Okay? Just a little clarification. You will seek me out yourself, wherever you think I may be found upon earth, to accept such payment as you deal me today. Sir Gawain's kind of like, well, if we're filling out paperwork, let me pull up my map and put the directions in. Where do you live? Let's do this, and I'll give you directions later. Sir Gawain's thinking, cool, because you won't be talking later. If I answer you truly after taking the blow, and you've dexterously struck me, I will tell you at once of my house, my own, my proper name. Then you can pay me a visit and keep your pledged word. If I say nothing, then you will fare better, for you may stay in your country, seek no further. Come on, take up your weapon. Let's see how you smite. Sir Gawain says, gladly indeed, and he whets the metal bit. He pulls a sharpening stone out of his pocket and goes, wants to make sure it's nice and sharp. So the Green Knight takes up his position, bows his head a little. Keep in mind, we're told he's half a giant. So bows his head means he gets in front of Sir Gawain and does this.
Oh my God.
And then he pulls his collar back because he doesn't want to ruin his good shirt. His long, lovely hair, he sweeps over his head, doesn't want his hair to get cut. Sir Gawain grasps the axe, lifts it high, setting his left foot before him on the ground. Left foot. This tells us what about Sir Gawain? He's right-handed. If he is left-handed, he'd put his right foot forward. Right hand would be here on the axe haft, left hand would be here, so that when he swings, he brings that hand down. You get more force that way. Okay? How hard does Sir Gawain swing this axe? We're told. It bites into the stone floor. He swings this sucker so hard, it sticks in the floor. The floor isn't dirt, it's stone.
Oh my God.
Okay? So, chops his head off. Brought it down swiftly 4:23 on the bare flesh so that the bright blade slashed through the man's spine, cut through the white flesh, severing it in two so that the shining steel blade bit into the floor. The handsome head flew from the neck to the ground, and many courtiers kicked it as it rolled past. It rolls over here, and you're like, blood spurted from the trunk, gleamed on the green dress, yet the man neither staggered nor fell away for all that. He's sitting there like this, standing there like this, and it's... We're in Monty Python land, right? What should Arthur and all the others immediately know?
Something's not right.
Yeah, oops. This is the oops of all oopses. He springs forward, reaches out where the knights were standing, finds his head, pulls it, walks to his horse, holding the head by the hair, jumps up onto his horse, rides over to where Arthur is, holds the head down so that Guinevere gets a good look at it, and the head speaks. 4:46, it lifted its eyelids. Okay, he hasn't put the head back on the trunk. It's holding the head. See, Gawain, that you carry out your promise exactly and search for me truly, sir, until I am found. Make your way to the Green Chapel. I charge you to get such a blow as you have dealt, rightfully given, to be readily returned on New Year's Day. As the knight of the Green Chapel, I am widely known, so if you make search to find me, you cannot possibly fail. In other words, Google will give you the right directions. Notice, the knight of the Green Chapel, I am widely known. They don't know him. So, rides out. Seeing that green man go, 4:63, the king and Gawain grin. Yet they both agreed they had a wonder scene. Arthur is deeply astonished, but he doesn't let anybody aware of that. Arthur, deeply astonished, probably thinks, damn, sucks to be Sir Gawain. That's going to hurt in a year and a half. Such strange goings on are fitting at Christmas. Putting on interludes, laughing and singing, mixed with courtly dances of ladies and knights. Nonetheless, I can go to my food. In other words, well, that was a marvel. Yes, indeedy. And now he's hungry. And he says to Sir Gawain, hang up your axe. Let's eat. Okay. Part 2. What do we see happen? Well, Yuletide finishes. You have Epiphany. Seasons change. Lent comes and goes. Pentecost comes and goes. 536. Yet until All Saints' Day, he lingers in court. What is All Saints' Day? Nope.
It's
The next day.
November 1st. Well, yeah, the day after.
Halloween is All Hallows Eve. Okay, it's November 1st. So, Sir Gawain waits until he has 2 months and a day. And he kind of figures, I better go start looking for this Green Knight guy, because I have no idea where it is. So, he lingers there. Arthur makes a feast. And what do we see? 5:45, he says, time for me to leave. I need to go find the Green Knight, fulfill my vow. And he stays there all that day, makes ready the next. And we get 570 and following his armoring. We have Sir Gawain being dressed in his armor for this game. Okay? We get the name of his horse, line 597, Gringolet. Okay? 595. Graciously he takes his leave of lords and ladies. They kissed and escorted him, commending him to Christ. Why do they commend him to Christ? Because probably the next time they're going to see him is when they're all together with Christ. It's kind of like, have fun storming the castle. You're dead. And he rides off. Okay? line 610 and following, get more description of what's on his gear and stuff. And then we're told his shield, 620. The shield has the pentangle painted on it in pure gold. Pentangle, 5-pointed star. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one, 5-pointed star. Okay? We have time for this? Close. And we're told, this is, by the way, the only place in Middle English literature the word pentangle shows up. And yet the poet's going to say, well, everybody knows what a pentangle is. Okay? Where it suited the knight extremely well, and why the pentangle should befit that noble prince, I intend to explain, should that delay me. It's a symbol that Solomon designed long ago as an emblem of fidelity. Okay? Notice, we're told it is an emblem of fidelity. What's an emblem? A representation, a symbol, a picture, okay, of fidelity. What's fidelity?
Faithfulness.
Faithfulness. Okay? So this is an emblem of fidelity, designed by Solomon, wisest of the kings. As an emblem of fidelity, for it is a figure consisting of 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, each of these 5 points is a particular thing. It's also called, in England and everywhere, the endless knot. Okay? Therefore, it suits this knight and his shining arms for always faithful in 5 ways in 5 times the case. So he's always faithful, there's the fidelity part, in 5 ways. By 5 times. Okay? Gawain was reputed as virtuous like refined gold, devoid of all vice, and with all courtly virtues adorned. First, he's judged perfect in his 5 senses. So he's perfect in his 5 senses. Next, his 5 fingers never lost their dexterity. And his earthly, okay, so 5 senses, 5 fingers. Third, 5 wounds Christ suffered on the cross. Okay. As the creed declares, and wherever this man found himself in battle, his fixed thought was that above all other things, all his fortitude should come from the 5 joys of Mary. Which we'll talk about in a moment, or Thursday, that the mild Queen of Heaven found in her child, and for this reason the gracious knight had her image depicted on the inside of his shield. So this is on the outside, it's not numbered, these aren't written, it's just the star. Okay? And on the inside of his shield, he has an icon of Mary. So that when he holds that shield up, he sees Mary. That fortifies him. Okay. The 5th group of 5, the man respected I hear was, and this is broken down, so I'm going to put this over here. Generosity. C, B, C, D, E. Lost my place. Generosity, love of fellow men. Okay. Above all, purity and courtesy. One of the other poems in the manuscript that contains Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is a poem that is titled variously either purity or cleanliness. So that seems to be a theme with the poet. And then the last one, purity, courtesy, and surpassing the others, compassion. Right? So, 5 senses, 5 fingers, 5 wounds of Christ, hands, feet, side, 5 joys of Mary, Annunciation, Okay, Gabriel comes to her. Incarnation, born, Christ is born. Crucifixion, because without that, everybody still goes to hell. Resurrection, because without that, everybody still goes to hell. And then the last one is either. Because there are medieval lists of the 5 joys of Mary, and the last one, it bounces back and forth between the dormition or the assumption of Mary in her physical body to heaven, or the ascension of Christ. It's one of those two. Okay? So, the Annunciation, the announcement that she will give birth to the Son of God, the Incarnation, the birth of the Son of God, the crucifixion, the death of the Son of God, the resurrection, the rebirth of the Son of God, and then either the assumption of Mary into heaven or the ascension of Christ. Okay? So those are those 5 joys of Mary. So this is on the outside of the shield. The icon of Mary is on the inside of the shield. Now it would seem that this is pretty important, right? I mean, the poet has just spent from 620 to 655, nope, 661. 41 lines. Poet never mentions it again. It's never mentioned in the entire poem again, the pentacle or the endless knot. The virtues kind of are, okay? So, now he's decked out. He's ready to go. He's ready to fight monsters and everything. He sets spurs to his horse and he rides, okay? And the poet tells us where he goes. For example, he goes until the very north part of Wales, 697. All the islands of Anglesey, he keeps on his left. In other words, he's going north, up the coast, because Isles of Anglesey are off in the ocean. If he kept those on his right, he'd be going south. So he's going north. All right. He goes past Holyhead. He goes into the wilderness of Wirral, where few people live. Okay. He sees bears and bulls and boars that he fights. He fights ogres, 723. Okay. I think there's even a dragon somewhere in there. I'm missing the place. And Christmas Eve comes. 734. He rides across the land until Christmas Eve alone. Earnestly, Gawain then prayed Mary that she send him guidance to some place where he might lodging find. Over a hill in the morning, in splendor he rides into a dense forest wondrously wild. High slopes, etc., thickly festooned, shaggy moss. Okay, so over the hill in the morning. What day is it? Christmas Day. Okay, and he's thinking there under the trees, I really need to find someplace civilized. Why? So he can celebrate Mass. And so what does he do? 753. I beg of you, Lord, and Mary, who is gentlest mothered so dear, for some lodging where I might devoutly hear Mass, and your matins tomorrow, humbly I ask. And to this end promptly repeat my Pater and Ave and Creed. Pater, the Lord's Prayer. Ave, Hail Mary, full of grace. And Creed, recites the Nicene Creed. And what happens? Hardly had he crossed himself 3 times, and he sees there through the trees a castle. Almost like he crosses himself the 3rd time, he looks up, and it wasn't there before, but it is now. So he rides up and knocks on the door. Porter welcomes him in. I'm going to skip a bunch. Line 810, Sir Gawain says, "Good sir, will you carry my message to the master of this house to ask for lodging?" And the porter says, "Yes, by St. Peter, and I truly believe." Notice St. Peter, footnote, gate warden of heaven. So, patron saint of gate wardens. And he says, "Come on in, stay as long as you please." Not quite the Hotel California, but he is going to be there for a while. And he is escorted in, and we will stop with 835. He meets the Lord of the house. We'll cover these couple of lines and then stop there. And the Lord of the house says, "You are welcome to do as you please with everything here. All is yours to have and command as you wish." Sir Gawain, thanks. Christ repay your nobleness, your noblessa. That's your gentilessa, your honor, your nobility. What has the Lord said? Everything here, treat it as yours. Okay, what does everything include?
His life.
His wife, his food, his clothing, his wife, his good, his wife.
Oh my
You get
God.
the idea? Okay?
Oh my God.
All right, we'll stop there. A couple of you, I've got things to hand back, so don't leave just yet. Tess, I've got something of yours.